بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Al-Fiqh al-Istidlali. Our discussion is about i'tikaf, and we were discussing whether it is possible to make a condition in your niyyah of i'tikaf that if something unexpected happened, you would be able to leave. So we read the hadith of Muwathaqa Umar ibn Yazid and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, واشترط على ربك في اعتكافك كما تشترط في إحرامك أن يحلك عند عارض إن عرض لك من علة تنزل بك من أمر الله تعالى. Make condition with your Lord that in i'tikaf, like ihram, if something happened, something which is not in your control, you cannot stop, something happens, you would be able to have permission to leave. Then we said that according to Sahib Jawahir, Khalaf al-Sheikh, and I checked also Jawahir, says Khalaf al-Sheikh, and there is no kind of a specific mention of the which book in the edition that I checked. Over there also says خلافا للمحكي عن الشيخ فلم يجوز الرجوع مع الشرط في اليوم الثالث. So Sheikh disagrees. Sheikh says that بالدعوة, means this is the argument, his claim, that أنه واجب من قبل الله تعالى. When you are making i'tikaf, it becomes necessary to stay in masjid. This is a religious taklif, obligation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot put condition. You cannot yourself, voluntarily put condition, for example, for wujub of salat. فلا يفيد الشروط فلا يفيد الشرط جواز الرجوع فيه. Shart would not then have this benefit or this impact that you can do something against this wujub, which is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what Sheikh says. But Sheikh Irvani says, our question is not that whether when something is made wajib by Allah, can we break it or not. Our question is whether that wajib can be made conditional. We don't want to, resist and disobey wajib. It's a matter of how that wajib is going to take form. Is it going to take form in a general way, or it can be restricted to when there is no emergency. وفيه أن الوجوب معلق على عدم الاشتراط المذكور. According to those who say that based on this muwathaqa we can make a condition, they say then wujub is conditional. Not that wujub is there and we want to disregard it. Wujub mu'allaqun is conditional upon what? Adam al-ishtirat al-mazkur. So if you make it that ishtirat, then it's not wajib. If you don't make that ishtirat, then it's wajib. فَلَا وُجُوبَ كَيْ يَمْتَنَعَ جَوَازُ الرُّجُوع. So there is no wujub when there is ishtirat. So that then we say ruju is muhal, is haram. وَأَضَافَ فِي الْجَوَاهِرِ. Sahib Jawahir has added this. لا ينافي كون الوجوب من قبل الله بعد أن كان الرجوع به من الله. The fact that wujub is from Allah doesn't contradict with what we say, because ruju is also from Allah. So the question is, does Allah permit this or doesn't permit this? We don't want to disobey him. Don't say that no, he doesn't permit it, but still you can do it. Okay. Now, if someone objects and قلت, if you say إن بين الروايات الوجوب المضي في اليوم الثالث والروايات الاشتراط عموما من وجه. If you say that we have two sets of evidence, references. On the one hand, we have hadith which says that if you reach the third day of i'tikaf, you have to complete. You cannot break it. Although maybe i'tikaf at the beginning was mustahab, you didn't have nazr or whatever, maybe it was mustahab, but when you reach this point, you cannot break it. There is another set which says you can do ishtirat, like Muwaththaqi Umar ibn Yazid. So, between these two sets of evidence or hadith, there is al-umum wal-khusus min wajh. They overlap. Means there are cases that they are sharing, and each of them has an area that doesn't share with the other. It's like two circles that cross each other. There is an area that is for both of them, and there are two areas which belongs to one of them. One for the first one, for example, the right one for the one on the left. And you know that in takhsis or in taqyid, whether it is am khas or mutlaq or muqayyad, we are talking about umum khusus mutlaq, not umum khusus min wajh. Because if it is umum khusus mutlaq, khas is stronger and will be prioritized over am. But if it is umum khusus min wajh, each of them from one aspect is khas, from another aspect is am. For example, say Iranians and Muslims. This is umum khusus min wajh. Iranians who are Muslims are shared. Iranians who are not Muslims or Muslims who are not Iranians are not shared. So if, for example, it is said that Akram al-Iraniyin, for example, the other one says La Tukrim, for example, this group of people that partly are Iranians, partly are not Iranians, then you don't know what to do when there is overlap. Okay? Like ulama in usul al-fiqh, for example, say akram al-ulama la tukram al-fussaq. This is khusus min wajh. But if it says akram al-ulama wa la tukram al-fussaq minhum, this is am khas. Okay? So, in qulta إن بين الروايات وجوب المضي في اليوم الثالث والروايات الاشتراط عموما من وجه. If you say there is خصوص من وجه, they overlap. When you have overlap between two sets of hadith, then you cannot do tarjih of one of them over the other. It's ta'aruz. لماذا رجحت الثانية? Why you are preferring the second group? Overlap, they are musawi, they are equal in weight. If it was am and khas mutlaq, khas is stronger, because khas would not have meaning if you don't prioritize it. Am has other things. If you take this part, this is for khas, out of am, still it has some instances. But if you act according to am, then for khas nothing remains. Okay? So, am khas mutlaq is clear. Al-khasu azhar min al-am. But here, khus mutlaq is not khus mutlaq, it's khus min wajh. قلت, the answer would be that we prioritize ahadith which mentions that conditioning is possible, because the ahadith which says conditioning is possible are also supported by some hadith which says that you should act according to wujub if there is no conditioning. So even your am is not am. Even your am is sometimes muqayyad بعدم الاشتراط. قلت, Sheikh Irwani says, I would reply لتقييد بعض الروايات الأولى بعدم الاشتراط, because those riwayat which are talking about wujub etikaf themselves have condition. كصحيحة محمد ibn Muslim السابقة, like hadith of Muhammad ibn Muslim which we mentioned before, which said وَإِذَا اعْتَكَفَ يَوْمًا وَلَمْ يَكُنْ اشْتَرَطَهُ, if he does itikaf of one day and had not made condition, فَلَهُ أَنْ يَخْرُجْ وَإِنْ أَقَامَ يَوْمًا وَلَمْ يَكُنْ اشْتَرَطَهُ فَلَيْسَ لَهُ. After 2 days it's not possible. So even in the hadith that says you need to stay, there is also condition. Not all of them, in some of them, that is enough. قلت لتقييد بعض الروايات الأولى بعدم. He said there are two sets. Those which say you have to stay, those which talk about conditioning, like muwathaqih. But they say even the first group, some of them has condition. لتقييد بعض الروايات الأولى بعدم الاشتراط كصحيحة محمد ibn Muslim السابقة, which I've quoted now for you. Okay, suppose even you don't accept this and we agree that there is conflict, عموم خصوص من وجه, without any preference. Okay, what should we do? We should consider that it's ta'aruz. إذا تعارض تساقط. Now we should refer to something else. If you don't have any evidence from hadith, you go to usul amaliyah. There is no Quranic ayah to help us here. There is no hadith supposedly. Suppose we accepted that there is no preference. Two sets of hadith, umu khusum min waj, and they both conflict and drop. So we have to go to usul amaliyah, bara'a here. And the result of bara'a is what? Is that there is no problem. So it's in favor of those people who said if you make condition, there is no wujub. The result will be the same. وعلى تقدير استقرار التعارض يرجع إلى البراءة والنتيجة هي. The result will be the same, that there is no wujub. If such problem happens, and you had made condition, you can leave. Now we start another discussion about i'tikaf. What are the conditions for i'tikaf, for validity of i'tikaf? Shara'it al-sihha, or in Usul al-Fiqh we were talking Shara'it al-wujub or Shurut al-wujub or Shurut al-wajib. This is Shurut al-wajib, not Shurut al-wujub. Sometimes you are talking about istita'a is condition for wujub al-hajj. But sometimes you are talking hajj after becoming wajib, what conditions it has. Okay? Or for example, what are the conditions for wujub al-salat? What are the conditions for validity of salat? Means shurut al-wajib. In a case, we are now talking about validity of i'tikaf. يعتبر في صحة الاعتكاف إضافة إلى قصد القربة أمور. In addition to niyyah of seeking nearness to Allah, because any ibadah needs the qasdul qurba. Any ibadah, whether it is mustahab or wajib, needs qasdul qurba. Otherwise, it's not ibadah. In addition to this, which is obvious, as sawm, you cannot do i'tikaf without fasting. ويدل عليه صحيحة ابن مسلم قال أبو عبد الله عليه السلام لا اعتكاف إلا بالصوم. There is no i'tikaf except with fasting. وعلى هذا فلا يصح الاعتكاف في السفر. For this reason, it's not valid to do i'tikaf while you are musafir, not muqim. Musafir in the sense that you are not in your watan or a place that you have made niyyah of iqamah. Maybe you are traveling, or maybe you are in a city for a day, for 2 days, few days but not 10 days. So you are musafir, opposite to muqim. Okay? Even if you are now in a hotel inside a city for few days, still you are musafir from fiqh perspective. فلا يصح الاعتكاف في السفر خلافا لابن بابويه والشيخ وابن إدريس حيث اختاروا استحبابه. Then we do وصل حيث اختاروا استحبابه في اختاروا استحبابه في. They said i'tikaf in safar is mustahab. How this is explained? قد يقرب. Sometimes they explain, articulate the argument in this way. بأنه عبادة مطلوبة لا يشترط فيها الحضر. They say i'tikaf is a ibadah which is desirable, and there is no condition of being in your own watan or where you have niyyah of iqamah. فيلزم جواز إيقاعها في السفر. What is the implication of this? What is required by this is that you can bring i'tikaf in safar. ومرجع هذا بحسب روحه إلى التمسك بإطلاق أدلة المشروعية والاستحباب. This point in reality goes back, in its spirit goes back to what? To say that the references, the adillah that we have for legitimacy and istihbab of i'tikaf are mutlaq. They don't make the condition that it has to be in hadar, means in your own place of residence, whether you are in your watan or place that you have made niyyah of 10 days. وَفِيهِ أَوَّلًا. But there is problem. The first problem is that أنه تقدم عدم وجود إطلاق يمكن التمسك. أولا, there is no such itlaq that we can refer to. We don't have any itlaq that i'tikaf is generally mashru', is religiously legitimate and it's mustahab, for example. ثانيا لو تنزلنا, suppose there is such a hadith, فكما أن نفس المقيد صحيحة ابن مسلم مقدم على المطلق كذلك قيوده مقدمة عليه. If we say we have itlaq, خب مقيد is always prior to mutlaq. Conditions of muqayyad are also prior to conditions of mutlaq. Okay? What does it mean? بكلمة أخرى. In other words, كما أن إطلاق المقيد مقدم على إطلاق المطلق كذلك قيود المقيد مقدمة على إطلاق المطلق. So مقيد, that is modified, with all its modifications and quyud, are to be taken above and prior to mutlaq and its conditions. خب, here what we have is that لا اعتكاف إلا بالصوم. Even if we had mutlaq, it says that it must be with fasting. And fasting has a condition. One of the quyud of fasting is that you should not be musafir. ثالثا ولو تنزلنا, suppose we compromise and we say there is mutlaq and this muqayyad cannot be prioritized over that. Okay, you cannot say something more than this. You say there is mutlaq, we said there is no mutlaq, but you say there is mutlaq, and also you say muqayyad is not prioritized. Okay, ta'aruz happens. لو تنزلنا, if you compromise, لبقى تعارض, then it will be a conflict between two sets of hadith which none of them is prior and stronger than the other. Prior to other or stronger than other. خب, تعارض happens. لا تقدم المطلق. You cannot say mutlaq becomes stronger. Either muqayyad becomes stronger, or at least you say they are equal. Then تعارض happens, conflict, and they both drop. خب, معه يلزم الحكم بالبطلان. Here, then when both sides drop, then if someone does i'tikaf without fasting, what happens? You say it is batil, it is void. Why? Because you don't have any hadith to say that such i'tikaf is ibadah, is mustahab, i'tikaf without fasting. Because we said those mutlaqat are doing ta'aruz with those with things which says fasting is needed. If you don't prioritize, at least you have to, both sides are equal and both drop. So then you don't have anything to say that such i'tikaf is ibadah and mustahab. And you cannot use bara'ah here, because with bara'ah, what can you do? With bara'ah, you want to say i'tikaf without fasting, without sawm, is legitimate with bara'ah, is mustahab with bara'ah. Bara'ah just says that it's not haram. If you don't know something it's haram, you don't know it's haram. Or there is no taklif upon you. But you cannot establish mashru'iyya of something with bara'ah. لو تنزلنا لوقع التعارض لا تقدم المطلق. Not that mutlaq will be prioritized. So they will be equal and both drop. ومعه يلزم الحكم بالبطلان. In that case, then we have to say that it's void. لعدم إمكان التمسك بالبراءة, because you cannot refer to براءة. Why? Because براءة cannot establish استحباب and مشروعية. لأنها لا تثبت الاستحباب. خب, Alhamdulillah, we finished remaining of the previous session. We talked about the first condition, which is fasting. The second condition, inshallah, we will discuss more, but just to prepare your mind, is al-adat. If you want to do i'tikaf, you must fast, but it's not enough. For example, if someone says, I do i'tikaf and fast 1 day, 2 days, no. There is a particular adat, number of days. Al-adat ويدل عليه صحيحة أبي بصير and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. Abi Basir quotes from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, لا يكون الاعتكاف أقل من 3 أيام. I'tikaf cannot be less than, in the same way that we said لا اعتكاف إلا بالصوم, here also we say لا يكون الاعتكاف أقل من 3 أيام. I'tikaf cannot be less than 3 days. وغيرها, it's not only this sayah, there are others. وعليه فلا يصح الاعتكاف أقل من 3 أيام. It's not valid to do i'tikaf less than 3 days. وقد دعي الإجماع عليه. Sahib Jawahir is saying that ijma is claimed, or maybe he himself makes the claim. قد دعي الإجماع عليه. It has been claimed, and then in the footnote gives the reference to Jawahir, that there is ijma. No one has said among our fuqaha that you can do it in 1 day or in 2 days. If you want, it is Jawahir volume 17 page 166. The actual ibara text of Sahib Jawahir is this: الشرط الثالث العدد لا يصح الاعتكاف إلا 3 أيام بلا خلاف أجده فيه بيننا. He says, I don't find anyone who disagrees with this. بل الإجماع بقسمه. Sahib Jawahir says there is ijma in both types. إجماع محصل, إجماع منقول. إجماع منقول is that it has been transmitted to us, other people have made. إجماع محصل is that you yourself establish it. So Sahib Jawahir says, first, I didn't find anyone who disagrees, and then he says, no, there is also ijma. So this is what Sheikh Irwan is referring to. قد دعي الإجماع عليه. خب, less than that 3 days is not possible. What if it is more than 3 days, a little more, or another 3 days? These things inshallah we discuss bi'Iznillah in the next session. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.